It's nice to meet you again, Willie. We appreciate your inviting us over and agreeing to this time with us. And welcome to Threads 2023. The last time we were here, we started a conversation and you asked about the shirt, the shirt I'm wearing, and the word
Yes.
inscribed on it. So this is a Nigerian word, a Yoruba word to be precise, and it means a teacher or someone who's written a book or a writer, and it's pronounced Akowe, Akowe. And I'm wondering what caught your attention when you saw that.
Akoi. It sounds very much like a Cree word, but if to you it means some kind of a expression, like to write a book. You're expressing.
Someone who passes knowledge.
Well, it's a form of expression, right?
Yes.
To write a book. So in what it sounds like to me, we have a very similar word, and it's called sakui. Now, sakui is an expression as well from the inside out. Oh, that kind of a sound. That's what sakui means in Cree.
Wow. Isn't it interesting how, you know, even from miles, being miles apart, these similarities or commonalities exist, and I see that in so many ways and in so many things, even culturally. The concept of someone who passes on knowledge,
Yeah.
the chiefs and elders, and the reverence and deference people would give to them. And even just yours talking about the expression
Yeah.
word or words and how important language is.
Yes.
And so perhaps we can from that segue into other conversations, and something that might be interesting for me and possibly for our listeners as well would be language.
Yes.
How is that perceived?
Well, in that word you have the ah sound. Ah. That sound is very common throughout the different cultures of the world. Ah has a lot of meaning, and it's often related to the creative, the creation, creator. Ah has a sound. So I find a lot of words, not only with your own language, but a lot of words from different cultures have very similar sounds to them. Our language is comprised of different sounds. And so ah is very common. Many cultures will understand that sound is attached to the sacred expression. The other part of it is there's another word, chi, for example. In our language, chi is a particle. You can't see these particles, but chi refers to a particle, or chi means a part of some whole, taken into bits and pieces. Each one is a chi. So in our language, chi is a particle, and very similarly in other cultures that chi is used very similarly to talk about perhaps philosophical ideas. Like in our culture, our teachings are we have the creation narrative, for example, that tells us the origins, pre-human origins, like the creation of the universe, the world, and within there, at some point when everything was finished being created, then the human being was ready to be created. Everything was set for the human being to live on the earth, and along with that, in our creation narrative, it tells us how the language was given to the people, how the language, what our language would be. And so our origins, our creation narratives tell us about our origins, and the language is a part of that. So the language comes right from the beginning of time, not only when we were created, but preceding those periods before creation. Because if the Creator gave us the language, then the language was in the Creator's mind before we were even created. The language that we would get was already in the Creator's mind. He knew the language and He spoke the words already. All He had to do was just give it to us as a language that we can use to communicate with. So many times I refer to those words that we have in our language as the philosophy of the Creator. If we study the words that we have in our language, if we look at the root words, do the etymology, then we extract a lot of ideas, a lot of concepts from single words. It's Atamskow, and we talked about that, Michael, last time. Atam is the root word for being given a richness, to be very thankful for something you received. And so it goes both ways in the encounter of two human beings. When they encounter each other, Atamskow is the first act that, creates that meeting, that encounter. And Atamskow, so in that encounter, Atam means to be given richness both ways. You give me richness and I give you richness. And we are both very thankful and grateful for having encountered each other. So we create that nuance, so we create that atmosphere. We create that act for you to be thankful that you met me, and I to be thankful that I met you. You've given me something to be rich, and you've been enriched as well. So Atam means grateful, The language that we just talked about, the language in our creation narratives, many of the elders and teachers will say, we learn from nature, the sounds of nature, how nature works with sound. We learn from that as well that all of that is embedded in our language, the different sounds that come and how we use sound, decibels, I don't know what, but we get the sounds of nature are our sounds as well, or our sounds are in nature as well. So there's that relationship there.
Even as we think about it, I'm just wondering how amazing, fascinating it is that your language has endured, your languages have endured. How are you able to pass it on from one generation to the next, and all of the resurgence and interest in the language, and the commitment that the elders and knowledge keepers have put into ensuring that the language continues and is passed on from one generation to the other?
Yeah, it is quite a task, because there's a lot of disruption that happened in our history. A lot of colonialism, a lot of missionary ideology, everything happening to our people that, but it's, when I said the language is also within nature, those teachings or those even ceremonies or rituals or anything out there that it has the language embedded in that as well. Like, for example, the pipe ceremony, there's a language embedded in that performance. So, the things that remind us of the language are the tools, the cultural tools that we have. We have to name them, and even with our encounters with nature, say for example harvesting of our medicines, we have to know the names of those plants. Michael, it would be just like if I called you Jane. How are you, Jane? You know, that's sort of insulting.
Yeah, that's not my name.
Yeah, it's not your name at all. You know, I wouldn't connect with you if I called you Jane. You wouldn't appreciate me. I wouldn't enrich you if I called you Jane. Because you have a name that you identify with. And it's the same, our teachings say, it's the same with plants. They have a name, they have a Cree name that they identify with. And in a sacred ritual, we have to say that name in this encounter with the plant. We have to say their name. And same with us in our encounter with the spiritual world. We have to say our name. My name is not Willie, by the way, but the spiritual name that I use is the one that I use in sacred performances. So I put out my name out there, and I address the plants or the trees or the beings by their name, their Cree name. So these are part of the teachings, and these are the memories or the ways, the avenues by which the culture keeps going.
When you spoke about naming things, the plants and animals, it brings me to relationships.
Yeah.
For you to name something, it means you're desirous of having a relationship with that thing. It's not just an object to you.
No.
It's something you have established a relationship with. So, again, going to ask, in terms of perception, how do you perceive, nature? How do you perceive the land? Like, I've had a totally different perception about land since being in Canada. Land for me used to be something I walk on.
Yeah.
But now land is something that gives me life.
Yeah.
And I learned that since coming to Canada and interacting with Indigenous people. So from your perspective, what is land? What is nature?
Again, I refer back to the creation narrative of our people, the Cree people. It talks about that time. Many people call it the mythological time, or predating our human existence, when everything was being created. And in that creation, everything, all the plants, the animals, the beings of all sorts, everything had their moment when they had a conversation with the Creator, or a talk with the Creator, and almost, in fact, begging the Creator that they wanted to be a part of our life. They already knew that the human being was going to be created, the Cree being was going to be created. So they all, and they already at that time, before our existence, they already loved us so much that they wanted to be a part of our life in some manner, that they would help us as human beings whenever we showed up. So they all begged the Creator, each in their own special way, of how they would help us, because they loved us so much. And so when we came on a scene, then each of these plants had everything, animals, the birds, everything, the water, the different beings, then they started doing their work to help us as human beings. And that's the idea we latch on to. Say we take any particular plant, and I can take this for example. This is a sage, So this sage already, at the beginning of time, asked the Creator how it's going to help us. And so today, this is how we use the sage, by how it's supposed to help us. And we were also, as part of our teachings, given when you talked about protocol, how to talk, what kind of language or how to talk to the plants, how they have to be addressed, and what their color is, and even what their song is. These are all protocol things that when we engage with them, we have to follow these. And so it's for every plant, a different name, perhaps a different color, a different way of approaching it. It's all that is an understanding, a part of the teaching, in very specifically if you're going into medicine work. So those are all teachings that we go through, and there's much more. We'll never know everything, but we have a lot of those basics that we try to follow, and we continue learning to, it's much deeper stuff at times, but we continue learning. So that's our relationship, and it's an encounter again. That encounter is really important because it's an interface between these other beings and myself, or ourselves as human beings. There's an interface. There's a point where an encounter happens, and that's where Atamskow fits right into that encounter. At the moment of that encounter, something important really has to happen if we are going to engage purposefully, or to have substance in our engagement or relationship. If I met you, when I first met you, if I said, "How are you, Jane?" That wouldn't establish a long-term relationship, I'm sure, but when we follow protocol, it's not only between human beings, it's protocol with all of nature as well, and the super beings as well. So these are teachings that we have to carry on. They're not written in books. They don't just fall on your lap, to have that kind of knowledge already. So these are the deeper meanings, deeper teachings that not what we call knowledge keepers. They carry, each of them carries different aspects of knowledge. So we call them knowledge keepers because it's their responsibility, their purpose to carry the knowledge with them. And if protocol is done to them, they enrich the other with the knowledge, So younger people are supposed to do protocol on older, the wiser, the masters of the knowledge, to approach them, to learn about all the different aspects of our knowledge base.
Yeah, that's interesting. And maybe we will go another direction now. For a newcomer, immigrant or refugee to Canada, perhaps one of the biggest challenge they would face would be isolation, the sense that you may have lost family, and even if you do have family, it's a very nuclear structure of just the father, the mother, and then the children.
Yep.
But in attending various Indigenous First Nations events, I see that deep connection, and the whole family unit almost being intact. I would see the kokums, the grandmothers and the grandfathers. Is that the structure, that recognition of an extended, larger family circle where everyone has a say and a part to play, versus just a very restricted, just the father, mother, and no contact with?
Yeah. Again, it's a part of the original instruction. The most important thing in all of the universe, in the creator world as well, is family. There was a creator family. All of the spiritual beings that were created, they all have families. They all have partners. They have their children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, and on it goes until we ourselves have our own families, our partners, and our children, our grandchildren, and all that. The tree there, the tree over there, it has a family too. It has a partner. That's what you see blowing around here, all this weight happening there. Something going on there, and but they have children. You can find them. They're a little bit shorter, and they have grandchildren. They're real short ones, and then they have great grandchildren. They're just coming up, So there's a family. That tree over there is probably a grandson of another tree that existed during my great-grandfather's grandmother's time, in the past 200-300 years ago or something. That is a descendant of that tree that my grandparents encountered at one point, So this family idea is sort of a number one with all the universe, and all the earth, the underground. But it's not, and the notion of family is not just my wife and our kids and our grandchildren, the human element of it. Relationships also extend out, and that's why they call it extended family, to the grandparents and the aunties and the uncles and so on it goes. You can have a huge human population of, from one family, with all the extended family. And they call it wakutuan. Waku, wa is to make shiny, ku is, I call it a flux. It can be anything you want. So our relationships are meant to shine us in the way that benefits us, the way that we want. Waku, to win. To win is just sort of a suffix for a whole system of, there's so many ways you can do this shining up of an individual. So the extended family shines on this personhood, Your extended family shined you up to be who you are. But Wakutuan continues, you see. There are other beings as well that shine us up. And that's where the plants and the animals and all of nature comes in. Remember I said they all loved us in the beginning, before we existed. They continue to love us. And so they're there to make us shine. They're, however, so that's a part of our relationship. That's a part of our family. But it's not just nature, the physical world. It's also now super nature into the spiritual world, right? The unseen cosmos and the whole universal, unseen spiritual world, other dimensions perhaps. They are also our relatives. They're part of the family. They make us shine. Their job is to really kind of shine us up and to be the best we can be. So when we say Wakutuan, it comprises the human, the ecology and supernature element of our existence. This is all dedicated to this one task of making each one of us the best human being that we can be.
And we spoke about Atamskow.
Yeah.
We spoke about languages and words, and I'm just wondering, is there a word for thankfulness?
In our teachings, there's only one being you can thank, and that's the Creator. So even that thankfulness is expressed in sound. Ai, hi, hi, hi. That, Ai is the supernature creator. And then when you say, it's a high sound. Ai, ai, ah, kind of a guttural. And then you come down. Ai, hi, hi, hi. So, it's an expression to the creative. And then you come down, hi, hi, until you're at the bottom, humble. Those are the sounds, So that's the only being we can thank. Even for you to be here today, Michael, I can say, thank you, Michael. I can say that in English, but I can't say that in Cree. What I have to say in Cree is, Thank you, Creator, for having created Michael to have the kind of thoughts that he has, kind of character that he has, that he's directed, guided to be here today. I thank you for that, for him being here today. So those, and that would be the same for anything. The plants, can't thank the plant, but I can thank the Creator for creating that plant to help me, and that we have encountered each other.
That's really, really interesting. And on that very interesting note of thankfulness, Willie, I would like to thank the Creator for allowing you welcome us to Sturgeon Lake Cree Nation, First Nation, and thank our listeners as well, those who have been able to join this session, for joining us, and I hope you learned as much as I did, and keep watching and keep enjoying the rest of Threads 2023.